Welcome back to our Facebook Live. It's been 2 months since we last met, right? Because we took a break because of Chinese New Year, and now we are back. So let's first let me do my necessary checks to make sure everything is up nicely done. Andrew, all okay? All okay on the different platforms? Let me check. Yeah. Okay, if you all can hear me, please do me a favor and put it into the chat that all the audio is okay. If not, give me a minute. Let me just make sure that everything is running properly. Okay. All right. Okay. Who's here? Let me know that you are here. Hi. Okay, we have people streaming in. Awesome. If you can hear me, please tell me that you can hear me. Okay, we have more and more people streaming in. That's good. That's good. That means the stream is working. Okay. So, without further ado, let's get started for today. Do preview. All right. So in today's session, we are going through we are talking about the core central region. It's perhaps one of the first few times you are hearing me talk about the core central region. Previously, we were very focused on the CCR, on the RCR and the OCR. Right, that is where we felt the most bullish about. That's where we felt the most areas with the most fundamentals where the fundamentals were the strongest. So today we want, but with the supply in the OCR and the RCR really dwindling, I guess it's time that we start to open up our horizons and start to take a look at where are some of the areas that still represent, right, areas with similarly strong fundamentals that presents that we can see presents some upside potential, some chances for, like the word over here, comeback and resurgence. But before we jump into that, because we haven't met haven't been speaking in 2 months, it's been a pretty eventful 2 months for all of us, with now a war going on. We've also seen the budget come up with new property tax, right? Some changes in property tax. We've seen the Fed raise interest rates. We've seen inflation basically going through the roof. And I guess these are some of the common and recent concerns that people who are monitoring the property market, right? Some of the most recent concerns. So I'm going to take the opportunity to address some of these concerns, weigh out how critical are some of these concerns, and how the changes in interest rates, property tax, going to impact the market as a whole and individuals, right? Diving down into the individuals as well. So for the property tax increments, just a margin for owner occupiers, right? If you're looking at, if you own a property under 2 million, it wouldn't affect you at all. Okay, it's mainly targeted, right? At the end of the day, this property tax change is targeted at more wealthy individuals. It's sort of like a wealth tax, okay, and also the tax on investors, property investors. So how is it going to impact the market? If we look at this, $2 million property at Balmoral Road, okay, has a annual value of about $28,000, right under the 30,000 mark. So if somebody was using this property for their own stay, they would not have been affected by the property tax changes. If this owner was holding it for investment, okay, then they will be affected, right, by 1% next year and an additional 2% in 2024, representing a $600 extra cost in terms of property tax as compared to before lah, right? So $600 over for a $2 million property over the course of a year, I feel it's very, very marginal, right? Is this going to have a huge impact on the market? I don't believe so, because in my years of experience in the property market, let me tweak that one to see myself. The screen, yeah. So in my years in the property market, right, I have never had somebody not like exit the market, not choose to invest in the property market because of property tax, right? We have people choosing not to purchase property or not to utilize property as an investment tool because of additional buyer stamp duty, right? Because of stamp duties and whatnot, but never because of property tax, right? So is this increment going to cause prices to drop in the property market? My answer is no. Okay, right, as simple as that, right? Moving forward, and for those of you who have some concerns with the annual value of the property that you're going to buy, you can actually purchase this information on the IRAS website, right? All you need to do is to key in the property address to get the annual value, and most of the time the annual value is lesser than what you would expect it to be. For example, this particular 𝗕𝗲𝗖𝗔 property, right, annual value $28,000. Honestly, because $28,000, right, you divide by 12, it represents only supposedly $2,300 rental, but obviously the rental for 𝗕𝗲𝗖𝗔 958 square feet is going to be way higher than that. So while technically the annual value should be the potential rental times 12, it tends to be a lot lesser than that. If you want to check, go and buy the details on IRAS. It's a bit more tricky if it's a new launch development. So if you're looking to buy a new launch development and want to know what's the annual value, you can buy the details for the resale properties around that area. Okay. Next up, right, I think, which is the one that most people are concerned about, right, interest rates. So while interest rates going up, right, I haven't heard clients approaching me to sell their properties because interest rates are going up. But with what has happened over the last couple of years, I do have, right, so when interest rate comes down, I do have more people approaching us to look to buy properties, right, when interest rates are coming down. But when interest rates are going up, we don't see the flip side happening, whereby more people are saying they want to sell their properties because interest rates are going up. We do get complaints, obviously, from clients saying, wow, interest rates up, mortgage very, very expensive, but we don't see the flip side happening whereby people start selling their properties because interest rates are going up. So there's just sort of an interesting observation that I have about the market, okay? So interest rates, how do we sort of understand or see its impact, try to predict the increase in interest rates impact on the Singapore property market, right? Is the likely increment in interest rates going to crash the market? I guess that's what people's main question to us is. Okay, to understand that, we first got to understand total debt servicing ratio. And for the total debt servicing ratio, which MAS has designed for the particular or the specific purpose of cushioning or preventing Singaporeans from over leveraging, and also factoring in a potential increase in interest rates as part of the calculation for a housing loan that you can potentially get. And for those of you who do not know, the total debt servicing ratio has already factored in a 3.5% interest rate for residential properties and a 4.5% interest rate for non-residential properties. So your housing loan that you have taken already factor in for a pretty high interest rates already. And some of these, the graphs that I've taken out from the MAS Financial Stability Report for 2021. I'm going to put that link into the chat and you can refer to that. Andrew, put the link into the chat for the Financial Stability Report. You can go and take a look at it. I read it every year, and it sort of gives you a idea on what goes on behind the minds of our friends at MAS, the people that decide whether or not to institute additional cooling measures, right? It's important for somebody who's in the market to look at the kind of data that these guys are looking at, right? And try to read between the lines of where they feel is their comfort level with regards to where the property market is headed towards, right? They have a whole section on the Singapore property market and where do they think it's headed to, whether or not they feel it's sustainable or not. I've picked out several parameters that they look at, right? Number one, as you can see, right, chart 3.5, the credit quality of housing loan. Okay, this is one of the parameters they look at, right? Has improved over the past year and is broadly in line with its 10-year historical average. I wouldn't go into the details on how they established this, right? But as you can see, the 10-year average is about 0.38%, and we are right smack at the 10-year average, right? It has come down slightly as compared to the last couple of years, which have been trending above the credit quality of housing loans, right? But we are still at the 10-year average. What I would like to bring your attention to is more on chart 3.6, which is the average loan to value ratio of the Singapore household, right? While the rules for LTV stands at 75% today, which is actually one of the reasons why I felt or I feel the previous round of cooling measures that dropped the loan to value from 80% to 75%, right, wouldn't really impact the market much, is because of this. What does this tell us? It tells us that the average loan to value for a Singaporean household is actually below 50%, meaning if what MAS has done has averaged up all our housing loans and they have divided it, and assuming the Singapore household is one person, that person has already paid off half of their house already, right? The outstanding loan is less than 50%. So how does this, right, if you look at this and the interest rates, right, it means that the increase in interest rates wouldn't really impact the Singapore household that much, right? Because out of the whole property, half of it has already been paid off, okay? And right, I jump to another part of the report, right, in the summary, right, the Singapore household debt servicing burden is expected to remain manageable. Okay, this was written in December 2021, before the interest rates increased. Okay, and over here, right, I bring your attention to this. Even if income falls by 10% from the low during the which was established during the COVID-19 pandemic, and interest rates increased by 250 basis points. 250 basis points means a 2.5% increase in interest rates. So now it's about hovering at for mortgage rates, right, about 1 point something percent, right, 1.5% thereabouts. So even with if it increased by another 2.5%, bringing us to where they have factored in the total debt servicing ratio 3.5%. So, you know, it is still going to be manageable because they have already designed it into how they evaluate loans with the TDS. Okay? So this is more of the macro picture on how, you know, a potential increase or the inevitable increase in interest rates, how is that going to impact the market on the macro perspective. On a more micro perspective, how is it going to impact you, right? So I've done just a very quick calculation. So for a 30-year loan tenure, right, with the existing interest rates at about 1.5%, should it increase by 1% to 2.5%, if you are holding a $1 million loan, you're going to expect to see a $500 increase in your mortgage, right? If you're holding a $2 million loan, you're going to expect to see a $1,000 increase in your mortgage, okay? So, what would be my recommendation? So if you are a little bit more conservative, you want to be able to plan your finances, your expenses for the future. If you have a resale property, you can look to start to lock in your loans. Okay, I believe DBS has an option for you to lock even to 5 years. Yeah, the mortgage. The rates, right, like a hard fix, right? Basically, whatever happens in the world, that interest rate is fixed for the next 5 years. I believe they had that option. I just don't know whether they still have it now. You can check with your bankers or a mortgage advisor, right? So if you don't want to expose yourself to all these potential fluctuations in interest rates, go and lock in your loan. Okay. Next up, inflation. Okay, another big thing, right? Because inflation going up, right? Interest rates going up, right? The reason why interest rates have to go up is because inflation is going up, and they use it as a way to counteract inflation. And how does inflation impact the real estate market? Okay, so we have charted out, right, the CPI, which is basically, right, the inflation, because it's the consumer price index, as a function of the property price index. You have seen historically, as inflation comes up, property prices also come up. Quite understandable, quite logical, right? Because property is the single biggest ticket item that most people will buy, and if there's inflation, because inflation also will inflate the prices of building materials, hence the second chart, right? So BCA actually publishes data like that. They consolidate all the tender prices, right? But BCA tender price is more of for the government contracts, but it is sort of a very good barometer for what's going to happen in the construction sector as a whole. What's concerning to me is that sharp increase. If you can see over here, I don't know. Oh no, you won't be able to see. But in the last part, right, in the second, third, fourth quarter of 2020, you see how the gradient is increasing significantly. That goes to show that the builders they have already factoring in a huge increase in material costs, manpower costs. Okay, and we have not yet seen this increment being reflected into the property prices as yet. So I've always used this analogy of like property prices acting like a spring, correct? So if you've not seen it, you can go and watch our videos about the cooling measures, right? Where I use the 3 items to sort of give you an analogy of how I see the Singapore real estate market. I'm going to get Andrew to put in that link into the chat. You can jump over and see it after this Facebook Live, okay? So that spring, right? So the spring has been compressed, in my opinion, over the last couple of years, right? Because of COVID, pent-up demand, and the fact that the government has not yet released sufficient land, even with, right, the lack of supply over the last couple of years. So all this is actually loading up that spring, okay? They have released a bit of tension in that spring by instituting more cooling measures. But this inflation, as you can see with the BCA price index, I believe is again going to add additional pressure and is loading up the spring again, because we have yet to see this cost be reflected in the property price index, right? Because the recent land sales, there hasn't been a lot of land sales, right? Of course, you're going to see land sales happening, but if you are charting it based on historical numbers, the numbers are really, really low. And I believe that's one of the reasons why the government is also trying to hold back on the supplying too much land into the market at this point in time. Also why they have instituted the cooling measures, because the cooling measures is trying to hold the developers back from doing too many en blocs. Because all this pent-up demand from the developer side for land, right, coupled with a huge spike in construction costs, all this, right, when the project actually launches, high land costs, high construction costs, it's going to make property prices shoot up, at least based on data points, okay? Because they're going to have to launch at, traditionally we factor in maybe 100, 200 PSF of the land sale price, then that's going to be sort of the break even. But if that break even is going to be like becoming 250, 300 PSF, the developers, they buy the land at break even maybe 2000 PSF, they're going to have to sell you at 2006, 2007 PSF. Then the market is going to get shocked. They'll be like, why the property price suddenly shoot up again? FOMO sets into the market, blah 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 blah, right? And it's causing a vicious cycle. So I think the government is really in a very tricky position at this point in time. And like I've explained in my previous video, I feel the whole market just settling into sort of a natural equilibrium. With the government not launching too many new launches, and hence demand all flowing into the resale market. So, and that's what's landing us into the topic for this week, right? With that's happening, where does the next pocket of opportunities lie, right? So inflation, in essence, right, back to this point, inflation, generally high inflation is good for property prices, good for asset prices. And how I see it, we're going to see a huge increase coming in the next couple of years, because of increased construction costs, because of pent-up developer demand as well, and us going through a historical undersupply of new properties into the market. Next up, war, right? With the new war, the Russian-Ukrainian war, right? Oh, I talk about this, I don't know whether YouTube will block it.
Oh.
Never mind. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the YouTube algorithm, we can't use sensitive phrases like that.
Controversial events.
Yes. Because they are controversial events. But in any case, right? Since I've already said it, whatever. On that note, right? To help us with our YouTube algorithm, if you find this video useful, please do help us like, subscribe, hit the bell notification button. It's going to help us a lot in our YouTube algorithm. Okay, back to the topic. So, there's this whole controversial global event, right? Let's use that word. Controversial global event has caused a lot of uncertainty in the market, right? A lot of people are sitting on the sidelines, not sure what's going to happen. And so, I've just jumped back into the previous controversial global events that has happened, right? We've seen one that was in the 1990s, right? Over in Iraq, right? Then again in 2001 and 2003, what were the impact on the property prices because of all these global events? Okay, we can see that there's no real correlation, right? One time prices actually came up, the other time prices came down. Then again in September 11, it was also on the back of the .com bubble bursting. So we can't really draw any meaningful correlation between property prices and global events like that. Okay, so then what I did was also to put in some of the events, right, that have caused significant movements in property prices after 2013. Okay, so why 2013? That was the year the cooling measures were instituted, and as you can see, cooling measures and government intervention have a higher impact on property prices than global events. Okay, you can see the 2013 cooling measures actually have caused prices to drop more so than the Iraqi war in 2003. Okay, yeah, but also another point to note on this is that decrease, right, price dropping, the magnitude of price dropping after 2013 cooling measures is very, very low. Okay, if you look at the property price index, I forgot to put that chart over here, but basically last time, pre-2013, every time there's a shock in the market, right, we tend to see property prices actually correcting quite a lot. For example, in 2008 and 2009, property prices actually corrected 24.9% because of the global financial crisis. The whole purpose of the government instituting cooling measures is to prevent huge drops like that. And on that note, they have done very, very well, because even with cooling measure, like new cooling measures coming in, we've seen price drops being very, very marginal, very, very small, right? Not even more than 1%, even after the 2018 property cooling measures. Even with the whole I also cannot say this word, if not YouTube will block my video again, right? The C word, okay? Even with the C word and the big P word, what has happened, property prices have actually picked up. So magnitude of increase is still as much as what we used to see, but magnitude of decrement after the cooling measure, right, is not as much as before. Right, because the market is insulated by all these cooling measures already. Yeah, and impacts on prices for the Singapore property market more because of government intervention than global events. So that's the conclusion for this particular slide. Okay, now let's get down to the topic at hand. Okay, so I talk about the global events and concerns for about half an hour already. But pardon me for that, because we haven't met in two months, and I just wanted to catch up a little bit on that, because I feel there's a lot of concerns that my clients are facing at this point in time. Thought I could address them together for all the followers and listeners. Okay. So the trailing CCR, right? Pardon the little cartoonish meme, and this is the best one I can find. It's like a rabbit and the tortoise race lah. So the question we want to ask ourselves today is, the CCR being will the CCR be like the tortoise and slowly catch up, right? Because the OCR and RCR today is running significantly far ahead, right? So I've also put this out similarly also from the MAS sustainability report, right? This is a very good chart to see how the CCR has performed over the last couple of years. As you can see previously, right, the CCR, as a matter of fact, tends to lead the RCR and OCR in terms of price performance, right? Or at the very least be very, very close. You see the lines is so close you can't really distinguish the colors lah, pre-2013. Okay, but ever since the institution of cooling measures, you start to see the CCR underperforming. Overall is the blue line. You see the red line, that is the CCR really not catching up to the prices over in the OCR and RCR. And today we are going to look at what are perhaps some of the reasons behind this phenomenon. Right, more data for you. This particular chart is charting the price movements of new launches in the RCR, OCR, and the CCR. With the CCR being on the top, right? New launch price only moving 26% in the last 10 years. We see the RCR moving 45% and the OCR moving 55%. Okay. Over in the resale part, pardon the numbers being blocked off. Andrew, can you help me check what's the numbers again? No, cannot. It was cut out. Yep. Let me get the numbers for you, okay? So basically for resale, right, CCR was about 8%, right? Increased 8%. The RCR increased 10, 12, Make a guess. Since we are waiting for the number, let me know what you think are the numbers over here. Who guessed correctly? I buy you coffee. Okay, OCR 26%. No, under resale. 8% for the CCR, 19% for the RCR, and 20% for the OCR. So as you can see, the CCR resale properties significantly underperforming the RCR and OCR resale properties. Right? Today we are going to take a look at what we think are some of the reasons behind the underperformance. So before we jump to that, we want to also frame the discussion, right, so that you understand where exactly is the CCR. A lot of people get this wrong, to be honest, and it's quite dangerous to get this wrong and not to understand this properly. I mean, because even if you ask agents, some of the agents also don't know exactly where the CCR line ends. And I'm going to share with you a funny story about this in a later slide. So where exactly is the CCR? So over here is a very good map to use, thanks to Property Guru, right? Why a lot of people get this wrong? It's because if you go to the URA website, which you would think is the best website, right? The best person to tell you where all these areas are, the answer is not very clear. Okay, so with URA being not very clear, everyone else is a bit blur. But I think this Property Guru chart is perhaps the best chart we can use already. Okay. So, right, it tends to be broken down into District 9, 10, 11, right, the one no questions asked. You see, here is the tricky part, because the CCR also is part of District 1, part of District 2, part of District 4, part of District 6, and part of District 7. So you see, that's why it's very tricky. So, which is why I included the next slide, right, where it's not considered the CCR. Outram is not considered the CCR. Close to, but not considered the CCR. Clarke Quay is not considered the CCR. Chinatown is also not considered the CCR. Bencoolen, right? And anything basically north of Ophir Road is not considered the CCR. Okay, so your City Gate, Concourse, those areas are not the CCR. Yeah, Midtown Modern is already at the exact line where the CCR cuts. Okay, and so why this is important? Because projects like One Pearl Bank, Riviere, the former Zouk, and Canning Hill Piers are not located in the CCR. And this is where funny story is, I guess not funny story, quite a sad story. I had a client who contacted me to ask me about my thoughts about Canning Hill Piers after watching our review video. And he actually bought Canning Hill Piers at launch, right? Not just one, but 2 units, not knowing that it was not actually located in the CCR. Because when you go into the project launch, this sort of things, right, the agents, especially the agents that are located in the project, they don't tell you that it's not in the CCR. I mean, they are doing their jobs, right, to sell. That is luxury property, right? It is within the city. So it's not wrong to say that Canning Hill Piers is within the city, right? Because honestly, this classification sometimes it don't make sense, right? Because Newton is so much further away from Raffles Place, but Newton is CCR. Canning Hill Piers is so much nearer to Raffles Place, so it's not considered the CCR. So sometimes it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me as well, right? And also on this note, I said before, and I'm going to say it again, when it comes into the resale market, most people they don't really bother whether or not a property is located in the RCR or the OCR, right? they tend to want to buy a property. When they want to buy a property, they say, oh, I want to buy a luxury property, I want to buy a River Valley property, right? I want to buy a Orchard property. They seldom will say, I want to buy an RCR property or a CCR property, right? It's more of a technical term that is used by right, industry people like agents, right, developers, maybe URA, or URA likes to use it because they use it for their data purposes. But then again, right, why I put this slide in here is because I guess it's more for consumers just to know exactly what you're buying into, and especially if you're paying for Canning Hill PS on average 3,000 PSF, Riviera quite similar to Canning Hill PS, right, One Pearl Bank. I mean, I'm not saying that these projects are no good, right? They have their own pros, their own value proposition, right? But as a consumer, you shouldn't be buying into them assuming, right, or thinking that they are CCR properties, right? If you're buying into Canning Hill PS because you feel it's an integrated development, is one of its kind in terms of its location beside Clarke Quay, so on and so forth, right? Fair enough, right? But you are not buying it because it's a CCR property. And also, I will also be a little bit cautious because these few properties, they are selling at I would say top of market price points within the vicinity. So you need to understand the exit strategy you're going to adopt when buying these particular projects. Yeah, that is not, and you cannot assume that they are in the CCR lah, because they are not. Okay. All right. So moving forward. So what got me to dive into this? What got me to dive into the CCR a little bit more, right, in greater detail? So like I mentioned earlier, it's because in the RCR and OCR, I'm finding it hard to really find things with obvious value proposition. I mean, there still are, but you know, not as clear as last year, right? Where we talked a lot about large OCR units, yeah, because of the upcoming demand, the low supply. So all those supply have all been taken up, and so this year we got to look for where pockets of value lie. And so what got me really interested to dive deeper into the CCR is because of the data of, you know, 𝗕𝗿𝗶 mentioned being 80% sold to Singaporean buyers on an average of 2,500 PSF. Canning Hill PS 80% sold to Singaporean buyers at 2,950 PSF, right? That really got me thinking, because the old way of thinking, right, is that the CCR, while I say Canning Hill PS is not a CCR, right, but you know, it's I took the fact that they are transacting at 3,000 PSF, I still chose to take this as a case study to get me thinking lah about, you know, what the CCR means and this sort of things. What has this actual data got to do or contribute to the CCR? We used to think that the CCR was a sort of a playground for a lot of foreigners, the playground for a lot of investors, things like that. Hence, you know, when prices go up, they go up very fast, and when they crash very, very quickly. So it was very, very surprising to me to see 80% of the Canning Hill PS sales going to Singaporeans. Okay? And that got me curious. That got me to think a little bit deeper. Is there sort of a change in demographics that's gonna, right, that is coming into the CCR area, or the areas near the CCR? Okay. Then also this particular chart. So what this particular chart is showing, okay, the light blue line is CCR resale prices. The dark blue line is RCR new launch prices, and the orange line is the OCR new launch prices. So I'm weighing against CCR resale versus RCR new and OCR new. And if you are sharp, you can see the trends forming. Over in 2015, okay, 2015, CCR resale averaging about 2,000 PSF, 1,000 PSF more than OCR new launches, which was averaging about 1,000 PSF at that point in time. Fast forward to today, we are seeing OCR new launches averaging to 1,500 PSF, while CCR resale properties are still averaging at about 2,000. The gap has basically divided by 2, right? It used to be 1,000, today it's only at 500. Yeah? The fundamentals have not changed, right? The fact is that those properties are still located in the CCR, but it's now that gap has narrowed. So it's the narrowing of this gap that has really, looking at the data for 𝗕𝗢𝗄𝗧 and 𝗕𝗿𝗄 together with the narrowing of the gap, yeah, it's starting to get me a little bit more curious about this. Okay, followed by the population census, another one of our favorite data points, right? Another one of our favorite things to look at when we want to analyze the property market in Singapore. So remember, over in the population census taken last year, the group that is making the largest group today is making $20,000 a year. Okay, a month, sorry, $20,000 a month, right? In 2010, just 10 years ago, the largest group was making between $3,000 to $5,000. So we are seeing like a fourfold increase in income, right? Of course, not the most direct way to say it, but you get where I'm coming from, right? So like the largest group today is earning $20,000 a month, right? How does that impact their purchasing power? If you look at a $20,000 per month income, right, with a 30 years loan, right, they can loan up to $2.6 million, giving them a $3.45 million purchase price budget, right? If you just use a very arbitrary way to analyze this. And this really can bring them into the CCR today, right? Last time you cannot afford, today can afford, can consider, right? So before we look at the reasons behind their resurgence, right, let's look at some of the reasons why the CCR didn't perform well over the last, right, underperformed the market over the last couple of years, right, basically from the 2013s to 2020, okay? I boil down to these couple of reasons, okay? Reason number one, right, there were too many investors, too much speculation in the CCR pre-2013 or pre-cooling measures, right? It was in the era whereby there was 90% LTV, there was no ABSD, so there was a lot of people that just with $100,000 you could buy $1 million property, right? With $200,000 you can buy two $1 million properties at 90% leverage each, because there's no ABSD. And then given all this, the lack of restrictions, right? The mindset of the people the investors pre-2013, given the choice, where you buy, right? You will naturally buy the CCR, the better properties, the better areas. Yeah, and at that point in time, investment in the OCR also wasn't in vogue yet, right? So all the speculative purchases were focused in the CCR. Of course, not to say the RCR and OCR don't have, right? But mainly in the CCR. So in this period of 2013 to 2020, they were sort of stuck with those speculative purchases, right? Those that weren't able to afford it had to sell it, force sale it, be it mortgage or whatnot. Hence bringing the prices down. Alright? So I would say 2013 to 2020 was a period whereby the investors were clearing their speculative purchases, cutting losses, things like that, right? Because with all the restrictions imposed on the Singapore property market, they weren't able to exit at the kind of prices that they bought, right? Because when people buy prices, especially when they buy new launch prices, they are forecasting, right, how much they'll be able to sell moving forward. And with fundamentals being so different from when they actually bought to pre and post cooling measures, right, the prices just couldn't match up to where they were at when they purchased in the early 2000s. Okay, so that's that. Second point, right, the price gap between the CCR and the other regions. So remember my chart earlier on, last time the CCR was easily double the price of the properties in the RCR and the OCR. On top of that, the developers used to build really big units in the CCR, right? So if you go to like Honolulu Towers, you get 5,000 square feet, right? Wing on Life Gardens, you tend to look at, right, minimally 3,000 square feet. So imagine this, already 2,000 PSF, then smallest unit 2,000 square feet. So that's going to be a minimum purchase price of 2,000 PSF, 2,000 square feet, $4 million last time. Yeah. Versus, you know, if somebody would have bought a 2,000 square feet in the OCR, that will only have set them back at $2 million. So that's like $2 million gap. Fast forward to today, right? So later on, right, that's one of the reasons why I feel that there's a resurgence happening, right? So last time, the price gap too big. People cannot afford that jump, right? They will never even think about going into the CCR because, right, the not just the PSF, but the quantums were too big. All right, so hence point number 3, out of reach of the mass market due to large quantums because of the large size. Right, the unattractiveness to foreigners after ABSD, right? Because these foreigners, they especially the high net worth, ultra high net worth, they are very mobile, or they are very flexible in terms of where they buy, right? They buy in the particular locations where they feel give them the best security, right? Number one, right? On the security, but that's why they still want to buy in Singapore lah, right? But second part is where they can potentially make the most money for those who are looking to sort of invest in a particular area. So with the cooling measures coming in, basically stripping the Singapore property market of speculative demand, all this hot money flowed away into market. But today, and especially after COVID-19, that seems to be changing, right? I'm going to touch on that later on. But so on this point, Singapore was one of the first countries to institute additional buyer stamp duty, basically penalizing foreigners for buying properties in that country. So with that, you know, it didn't appear that attractive for foreigners to buy properties in Singapore anymore, and hence they chose to buy in other countries. So stripping us of the demand from foreigners. Okay, and on the last point, right, the mindset shift. Okay, so previously, before the cooling measures, there was a lot of speculation, right? Everybody buying property was looking at, you know, flipping it in 6 to 9 months, because at that point in time also don't have SSD. So good, right? Last time, no SSD, no ABSD, 90% leverage. It was the wild west. That was why people could have made tons of money from property. But also with speculative demand brought about huge movements in prices, and that was the reason why the government instituted cooling measures, right? So in the big picture, the cooling measures did help Singaporeans, but the cooling measures have caused the CCR to underperform over the last couple of years. So has the things, right? So if we want to answer the question, is the CCR poised for a comeback? What we need to look at is these factors that are causing its underperformance. Have things changed, right? Have the fundamentals changed to justify or to make us convinced that things will be taking a change, right, for the better? And before we jump on that, I promised you guys a list of profitable CCR properties, and here it is. For those of you who signed up in the link, we're going to send this to you after the Facebook the Facebook Live so that you can analyze in greater details. There are some extra details that we have that we didn't include here, so it's just for the people who signed up in the link lah, right? So if you want that more detailed list, you can drop me a text, right? Put in a comment, whatever, we'll send that list to you in PDF. So what's some of the profitable CCR properties? Right, we have Martin Modern with 53 transactions in 2021, but I think a good 80% of those transactions were the new that means buyers buying it directly from the developers. I believe there's about 10 resale transactions, right? They average to about 4.37% annualized returns. So pretty decent, yeah? And this kind of percentage annualized returns for new launches do not lose out to the new launches in the OCR or the RCR. But I think what's more interesting is the performance of the resale property. So only Martin Modern is new launch, right? The rest are all resale properties. They have also performed well in 2021, right? With average annualized returns averaging about 3%, 2.something%. Yeah. So I think, but what is more, I think value added, right? What's a better value add to this is to understand what are some of the characteristics that have helped these properties perform well over the last year, right? And bear in mind, it wasn't because of last year that they performed well. These properties, they have performed well over the last couple of years, okay? But I just used the 2021 just for the sake of comparison lah, okay? And so what do they have in common? I guess that's also the most important questions that you guys want the answers to, right? So how do you pick profitable CCR properties? Okay, preferably they are anchored down by good schools, right? Okay, hold on. Let me. No, it's. Oh, sorry. Hold on, the YouTube one's, and I think the Facebook one is streaming a lot better. Yeah, it's lagging pretty badly.
Because it was, it like kept moving, right, at the reasons for CCR Underperformance, and now it looks like it's catching up.
Okay. I think it's getting better. Yeah. So for those of you on YouTube, apologies. Yeah, I think hopefully it's better now. Yeah, it states that it's better now. But you just put in the link. Yeah. Okay, I think it's better now. Right. My apologies for the technical difficulties, especially for those of you on YouTube. I think, yeah, it's better already. Right, back to the topic. Perhaps one of the more important slides in today's presentation. Try to pick properties that are anchored down by good schools, right? How does that help you? That helps you ensure that there will always be somebody buying over the property from you the next time, because they also want to put their kids into those schools, right? A very simple way of thinking about it, right? Quantums, also be very aware of the quantums, right? Later on, I will explain to it a little bit, but maybe I can touch on it a bit at this point in time. So if you are buying for, right, a little bit of investment / own stay, try to keep the quantum at an affordable quantum for the mass market. As the slide earlier, I was telling you what is sort of a sweet spot budget for the mass market, yeah, 3 to 4 mil thereabouts. So that would be how I classify as sort of achievable purchase price, still for mass, right, general mass market Singaporeans, right? Mass market 3 to 4 million doesn't really seem to tally, but I hope you get where I'm coming from, right? Because if for purchases above those quantums, right, the exit strategy and exit plan is very, very different, right? The kind of how you visualize your exit is very, very different. So for under $4 million, the exit strategy can still be, you can still adopt the exit strategy or the way you analyze or forecast your exit to be somewhat similar to even OCR and RCR properties, right? Because the buyers are buying for their own stay. The considerations are still somewhat similar, okay? So also be aware of number of units, size of development, same fundamental as what we adopt for RCR and OCR. The larger the development, the better. And as a matter of fact, this particular point is even more pronounced in the CCR, because if you take a look at Martin Modern, you take a look at the area in River Valley, Robertson Quay, very, very obvious. The larger developments are profitable, but the smaller developments, those one tower tend to be unprofitable. So it's very, very drastic. Because even in the RCR, if you go to District 15, there are some boutique developments that still do okay, right? But most of the boutique developments in the CCR don't do well. Okay, so be very aware of this, right? I will also look at the percentage of owner occupiers versus investors, and that's one of the reasons why this particular parameter will show you some, because how do I say it? If you have too many investors in a particular development, prices tend to trend downwards as opposed to upwards. Right, percentage of Singaporeans versus foreigners as well. So the last 2 points, more or less the same reasons. Foreigners, usually they buy it for investments. So to be safer, right, try to buy developments that have more Singaporeans in them. And also, especially Singaporean owner occupiers. And that is also the reason why reasons 1 and 2 right? That's what people are looking for. So to make for an easier exit. Okay? So what are the reasons for the resurgence? Okay, more Singaporeans are considering the CCR for their own stay. Why? Right? Because of point 3 and point 5. 0.345. Okay? But before I jump into that, let me maybe talk a little bit about the lesser speculation in the market. So I think this all of us know. With the cooling measures, speculative purchases in the market has basically been wiped out. So the prices in the CCR have stabilized, especially for the newer developments. The purchases into the newer developments, not speculative anymore. They either buy it for investment or for own stay, but not speculation. So for investments, because they either have paid quite a fair bit in ABSD or have decoupled to purchase, they have the holding power, because for them to purchase, if they are taking a loan, TDSR has been applied, LTV has been applied. So even with interest rates increase, they are not forced to sell their properties off at a time that they don't want to sell off. Hence, bringing more stability into the prices of the CCR today. Okay, on 0.345, right, smaller units being built, quantums narrowing between the CCR and other regions, right, and landed prices skyrocketing. So I put you in the scenario of, let's say, a month. Imagine they have just fulfilled their MOP for their HDB. They are looking to upgrade. Okay, and I guess for a good number of Singaporeans, they are still looking to either purchase a landed property, of course, if they can afford it, right? But landed property, as we have shared with you quite a fair bit. The internet.
On both Facebook and Instagram. Okay, we're back on Facebook.
Yeah, I can see that it's lagging quite a fair bit.
Both Facebook and
So what do we do? Sorry about that. Yeah. It's been a while since we did it. I think it's okay again. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I apologize for that. I think it was quite laggy on the last point. So let me repeat the last point again. Right? So let's have a make-believe scenario, right? With our make-believe couple that's earning $20,000 a month. They've just hit their HDB MOP, their EC MOP. They're sitting on pretty decent profits from their first purchase, right? Have their first pot of gold already. They also are earning well, so they are looking to either buy a landed property or move into a better location, right? Especially if they are like in the banking sector, tech sector, or they have friends who stay in the CCR, or their parents used to stay in the CCR. Okay, so it's always between landed or CCR lah. And with landed prices, as we have said, shooting up significantly, right? Easily $1 million extra today as opposed to last year for a inter-terrace, $1 million extra. So people are starting to become a little bit torn, and then some more if not say they want to buy landed, they can buy today. The supply of landed as compared to the demand is also very, very drastically different, right? Under supply. And then also if they want to buy it, they have to pay probably above asking valuation for it, because of the imbalance between demand and supply. Hence, shifting people to start to think about, hey, why not? Maybe I buy a 3-4 bedroom in the CCR, right? Because prices are still relatively, they have not spiked as much as the rest of Singapore. Yeah, in a better area in River Valley, traditionally a atas area, so to speak. Yeah, so the skyrocketing landed prices have sort of shifted some of the demand over into the CCR, local demand. Also, additionally, right, because the CCR, the developers used to build really, really big units, but today the developers are becoming a little smarter, and also because of all the ABSD QC rules, right, the developers cannot just build huge units and just leave it there and hopefully one day they can sell it, right? They need to move units fast, and they have become smarter by building smaller units, right? Today we have units that are very similar in size to our OCR and RCR units. So we have like our 700 square feet 2 bedrooms, 500 square feet 1 bedrooms, 1000 square feet 3 bedrooms, which last time totally cannot find one in the OCR, right? Last time. So one of the reasons why, one of the examples, it's very, very obvious, right, is if you go to Robertson Quay, right, the example that I showed you just now. Martin Modern, yeah, 900 plus square feet is a 3 bedroom. But if you go to Martin Place and if you go to Rivergate, 1000 square feet is only a 2 bedroom, which is one of the reasons why Martin Modern, despite it being 99 years in a freehold area, have done well, right? So it caters to a particular group of, buyers that they need the number of bedrooms. They want the prestige of buying into the CCR, and it's not that they are silly to buy a 99 years. It's because because if you don't understand it, right, you are looking at just the data. You see Rivergate 1000 square feet bought at that price, and you see Martin Modern at that particular square feet also at that price. You'll be like, why that guy will do such a silly thing and go and buy? But if you dig deeper, analyze deeper, you realize Rivergate is a 2 bedroom and Martin Modern is a 3 bedroom. So that is also something interesting phenomenon that I have observed moving forward, which is why I quite like the newer CCR developments, right, that is catering to this kind of demand, right? Slightly smaller in size, while the PSF is obviously higher. I feel that it's going to be a demand for these properties moving forward, because they don't have the alternative. The buyers don't have the alternative to buy the other kind of the slightly older developments, because they just don't provide sufficient bedrooms. Okay. Then we are talking about the return of foreigners, right? Because I feel and this is something that I've gathered feedback from all over the different spectrums of agents on the ground, from those doing shop houses, high quantum purchases, luxury properties. What we are seeing in the market today is a significant increase in high net worth individuals looking to move funds into Singapore, right? Part of it thanks to geopolitical uncertainties, part of it because of Singapore's performance tackling COVID-19, right? And with basically Hong Kong screwing up how they handled COVID-19 so badly, it's making us look a lot better. With us also opening up a lot faster than them, we are pulling in a lot more expatriates, a lot more high net worth individuals, and also Hong Kong, right? We are really benefiting from that situation over in Hong Kong. We are pulling in a lot of hot money. And so on what I said earlier of the foreigners choosing to buy properties outside of Singapore because of all the restrictions, we see that phenomenon being reversed, because not only other countries are also starting to have cooling measures on their own. Once everything is equalized, basically every country has cooling measures, all these high net worth individuals, all these foreigners then will have a fair pick again, and from that, then what they look at, Singapore will then stand out because of our stability, and also because of how our tackling of the COVID-19 crisis further reinforced our standing in the global gateway cities. Okay? Right. Lastly, the fundamentals are now more in line with the rest of Singapore. So what do I mean? What do I mean by this? We are starting to see a higher number of foreigners, right, buying up into a particular not foreigners, sorry, Singaporeans buying up in a particular development, right? Last time, right, we have seen the classic cases like Reflections. The reason why it's been the prices over there is so screwed up is because of the high number of foreigners buying into it. Another reason why the Sentosa Properties was so screwed up because there was so much speculation inside, so many foreigners, so they were just selling left, right, center at any whatever price, okay? Versus now, right, the developments, like I mentioned earlier, primarily made out of Singaporeans buying it either for own stay or for investment, just their first or second property, right? And so they will not be selling those units at whatever prices because of any geopolitical movements or because of any interest rate or currency fluctuations. Okay, so a lot more fundamentally strong, bringing us in line with like the demographics of properties at the RCR and the OCR. Okay? And last but not least, right, a word of caution for those of you who are looking to move into the CCR or exploring the CCR, right? One of the key questions to ask yourself is, does a CCR property fit into your property plan? Why do I say this, right? Read also the second point, right? Are you buying your ideal CCR property, or are you just making do? Why do I put these 2 points in? Because I have had clients come to me and ask me about, whether or not they should buy a CCR property at this juncture. And a lot of the times, especially if they are like in their early 30s, while they can afford a property in the CCR, it tends to not be the ideal property, so to speak, right? They are looking at per square feet, right? They enter that because per square feet, but because of the fact that they have not worked long enough, either because of, right, more of the savings, loan-wise tend to be okay, but it's more of like savings for down payments. So they are fixed with a certain budget. And with that kind of budget, while they can buy the location, they cannot buy the type of unit that they like, which is maybe a spacious 3-bedroom. They are then looking at like 2+ study, 2 bedrooms, and they're trying to fit their property plan into the location and into trying to fit that property fit their life into that property, which I never recommend. Okay, and so if you want to buy the CCR, right, my advice is make sure you actually do like that property. Okay, make sure it works for you. right? I will take a step back and ask myself, am I making do on my requirements just to buy that particular property? If that is what, actually this doesn't even, not just applies to the CCR, I guess it applies to every purchasing in any part of Singapore, right? Always take a step back. Are you making do, right? Because as a person, I never like to make do, and how I advise my clients is also never to make do. So what do I mean by that? So, right, you might be saying, oh, Alvin, so when you say don't make do, what do you mean? So for example, right, for this particular client, they were looking at maybe a 2-bedroom or maybe a small 3-bedroom in the CCR. Then I asked them the question, is that really what you are looking for? Is that something that you're happy to stay in the long term? Their answer is no. So what we did in return, right, on the other side of the fence is, since we cannot buy our ideal property today, right, shall we explore some of the options to is there a way that we can maybe take 1 or 2 steps more before hitting our ideal property by deploying our cash in the right way, buying a correct investment property? Yeah, so we split up into 2, right? Just focusing then on the investment properties, maybe move the investment properties in 5 to 6 years time, and then consolidate our funds later on to buy the ideal one that we really want versus making do. Okay? And third point, right, please do not just focus on the PSF, because that tends to land you in the type of properties that will lose money, like the boutique developments. There's a reason why their PSF is so low, right? I rather you pay a little bit more and buy the larger developments, the better developments, okay? And also make sure you analyze the layouts. Are the layouts usable? Because a lot of times, and this is sort of like a self-fulfilling kind of thing, because you go on Property Guru, you find, and then the PSF, wow, looks very good. Then when you went to go and view the property, because you already convinced yourself that I think it's a good deal because the PSF is low, you go inside even though there's obvious red flags like the layout is crap, the development is crap, right? You still force yourself to, maybe okay, right? I buy, right? Since the PSF is so low, it's going to work out fine. Please do not do that, okay? You have, right, bringing me to my last point, visualize your exit, right? Who's going to buy from you? If you are buying it solely because the PSF is low, you are in for a world of hurt when you want to exit the property in the future. There are particular developments that were designed to catch, right, buyers like that. Buyers that are overly focused in your PSF, they have terrible layouts, they have terrible facilities, that sort of things, right? Another thing to be cautious about is also, please do check what is the maintenance fee of the particular development that you are buying into, because some of the PSF is very low but the maintenance fee is very high. If you are buying it for investment, all that adds up in the long run, and then next time it's also going to make it extremely hard for you to sell if the per square feet, if the maintenance fee is very high. Okay, and with that we come to the end of our Facebook Live today, and I apologize sincerely for the patchiness in terms of the internet. I will look into this for our next session. And as usual, ending off with offering you guys some information if you like, right? We have our ultimate guide, we have our Contrarian strategies ebook. So if you want to understand in greater detail the thought process behind how I think, how I plan for my clients, right? Reach out to us. Happy to send you these collaterals for you to read through, 100% free of charge. So, and also for those of you who want the more detailed list of the profitable CCR properties, similarly, either drop us a PM, drop us a DM, drop me a WhatsApp. Okay, Elizabeth can't join us, but she'll be back soon. Because she's on maternity leave. So also another funny questions. A lot of people were asking, where's Elizabeth? Where is Elizabeth? Some of our clients scared that something happened between the two of us. We are perfectly fine. She's on maternity leave and she'll be back soon. Right. So if you like what we shared, please do follow. Again, help us like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification button. And follow our Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And with that, right, we come to the end. Now let's see if there's any questions. What question? Have Oh, can buyer convert resale 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom? You can, right? If the layout permits, yeah, Yong-san, if the layout permits. But that's a creative thing to do lah. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll send Yong-san, Yun-san, which thing you like? You would like us to send you the list, the guide, or the ebook? Do let us know. Gerald, would it be advisable to purchase a 1-bed new launch in the CCR 99 leasehold for investment? Oh, that's a really tough question. Okay, so Gerald, my question back to you would be, what is your exit strategy? What's your plan for this? If it's your second purchase, I think it's okay, right? Do explore your what are the alternatives for the particular budget you're looking at. If you're asking me 99 years, a CCR new launch, I guess your budget is maybe about $1 to $1.4 million budget. I would explore some options like, would a resale property, for example, would a MOPEC in the OCR offer time frame that you decide on? Would it make more sense to you, right? So the CCR 1-bedroom 99-year lease can still make money, but the next question is, within the specific time frame, which option can make you the same amount of money? Because if you're intending to hold it for a long period of time, both will make money. So it kind of depends on your property plan, right? Hence my question back to you: what's the kind of holding period you are looking for? Yeah. You mentioned foreigners are buying, right? Why yen? You mentioned foreigners are buying in Singapore despite the high taxes. What are they buying? Where? Who are they? One can buy apartment in Bangkok for the taxes. 100% right, Wai Yen. I hope you pronounce your name right. You mentioned foreigners are buying in Singapore despite the high taxes. What are they buying? If you really go and analyze the percentage, right, you can see in terms of the percentage in particular developments, how many percent is bought up by foreigners, Singaporeans, PRs, which is why I managed to find the data on 80% Singaporeans buying Canning Hill Pierce. So the foreigners coming back in to buy residential properties, a lot of them are buying the larger units, the penthouses, and more core Orchard Road properties, right? Being the Patterson area, the Cascaden area, and the Ardmore area, right? Not so much in the so even with the CCR, there's also different classifications. There are some that is more, I would say, prime CCR. So that's your Orchard Road, your Ardmore, your Patterson, Cascaden, right? More of the foreigners are focused in that area, right? But when you move a little bit further out into your Newton, Novena, Balmoral, River Valley, the area, they are starting to be a lot more Singaporean buyers already, right? I hope that answers your questions. 3 to 4 years holding period, Gerald. 3 to 4 years holding period, CCR 1-bedroom, maybe a little bit tough, yeah, for a 3 to 4 year exit plan. I would consider how to answer your question. Okay, if you have a 3 to 4 years holding period, I would buy properties that have a wider buyer pool. Yeah, I hope that can give you a bit of perspective. Have a wider buyer pool. CCR 1-bedroom, the buyer pool is a lot smaller, hence will require you to have a longer holding period. Okay. I thought for foreigners makes more sense, Yun San, makes more sense for them to rent than to buy. It kind of depends on what kind of foreigners. Yeah? The foreigners that buy the huge penthouses, they are looking to move funds to park in Singapore. Number one, right? Number two, it's more for conspicuous spending. So foreigners also got different type of foreigners. Got some foreigners is the super rich one. They buy, they don't even bother renting them out. I think the foreigners that you are talking about are the foreigners that come here to work, EP, blah blah blah, those sort of things. So those foreigners, you are right, they don't buy. They will just rent. Yeah. So foreigners also got different type of foreigners lah. Yeah. We have our ultra high net worth and we have our EP sort of foreigners. Yeah. So I hope I answered Gerald's questions, Yun San's question, and YN's questions. Right. Wow, today got quite a lot of questions. Very good. Keep the questions coming. Do we have any questions over in YouTube or Instagram? YouTube also have, Vaishnavi, what are your thoughts on Piccadilly Grand as an investment? Speaking of which, I am going to do the review on Piccadilly Grand. Yeah? I'm going to do my review on that. What do I think of it as an investment? I had to give you an answer because I haven't even go and think about that particular video. But it's coming out real soon. Oh, okay. Yeah. So sorry about that. I don't really have my thoughts on Piccadilly Grand as yet because I haven't went to analyze that yet. But once I do, I'm going to put that video up in the same format, 3 things I like and 3 things I don't like. So yes, if there's no further questions, I hope to see you guys next month. Let me know. You can PM me if you have a particular topic you want me to talk about. I already have something in mind, but if I start to see quite a number of people text me on a particular topic, I may change it. Okay? If not, yeah, you can still ask me questions. Just drop me a PM, drop me a text, and still happy to take your questions. If not, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We hope to see you next month, and don't forget to continue to watch our content. Bye-bye. Suddenly after we end, got more and more people coming.
Yeah. Oh, it's not a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's good.